Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. Number one. I just mentioned Jabari Smith, and here is my number one question. Is Jabari Smith the no doubt about it number one overall pick in this draft? And listen, I understand that I love college basketball. I think if you listen to this show, you love college basketball. But a couple things about this draft in general. First of all, what I will say is I do think that in general, if you're asking me about this draft, what I would say is that while, we'll get to the number one pick in a minute, I do think there's probably more depth in the middle of the top 10 than there usually is. It feels like there's a clear number one, clear number two. Some years it's a top two, a top three, whatever. And then you get to pick 4, 5, 6, 7. All of a sudden there's this massive drop-off. This year, I actually don't feel as though there's that much of a gap between number one and number 8, number 2 and number 7, number 2 and number 8, number 2 and number 9, whatever. I think you can get good players at the back end of the top 10. Johnny Davis from Wisconsin, Keegan Murray from Iowa, Ben Mathurin from Arizona. But I also don't think those guys in the number 1 and number 2 spot are as can't miss as they have been in years past. I mean, think about most years with the number 1 overall pick. It feels like you're getting just about a certainty with the number 1 overall pick. Now, we can nitpick guys' careers as they've unfolded, but Kyrie Irving as the number 1 overall pick was a key part of a championship team with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. Anthony Davis, he's fallen apart. He said he didn't pick up a basketball in 2 months, but he is going to be a Hall of Famer as the number 1 overall pick. Zion Williamson, he's been banged up, but when he's healthy, he was an all-star who averaged 27 points a game. Ben Simmons, we can critique him. I certainly have, but he has been an all-star. So for the most part, that number 1 spot, even number 2 with guys like Brandon Ingram, Ja Morant, whoever. For the most part, even at number 2, you're getting a pretty clear-cut established star. And this year with Jabari Smith, this year with the number 1 spot, I am just not sold that there is that definitive, if you draft him, you 1,000% are getting a future NBA All-Star, which brings us to Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith is an interesting guy because this is going to sound terrible, right? You tune into this show because you want strong opinions, you want honesty, you want clarity, you want whatever. I have no super strong opinions on Jabari Smith. Do I see why Orlando wants to take him number 1 overall or why he is projected to go number 1 overall? Most NBA mock drafts seem to have him at number 1 overall. I actually do. Guy is 6'10", shoots 43% from 3, and is a really, really, really gifted athletic player. 6'10", super long, super skilled, really has an ability to hit every shot on the floor. And so when the question is asked, who do I think will go number 1? I do think it's Jabari Smith. Now, the question is that who I would take number 1? No, I would take Paolo Banchero. I told you that after the NBA draft lottery. But I also think while I understand why Orlando probably will take him number 1 overall, I don't think he is that no doubt about it, take him and don't even sweat it number 1 overall pick that we traditionally get in this draft. I do think there are concerns, and I do think there's a scenario where he could be a really good NBA player, but not the future superstar that you're hoping to draft at number 1 overall. When I look at Jabari Smith, when I look at what he did, here's the bottom line about him. I like the skills. I do like the skills. But there are some concerns, mainly that, does he shoot the ball from 3 a little bit too much? Okay, I went ahead and looked this up because it felt like in my head, this was a guy that mostly hung out inside or outside the perimeter, especially on offense. Catch, shoot, deep threes, all that good stuff. And the numbers back it up. This was a guy that, how about this? On offense, he had 32 total offensive rebounds the entire season, okay? So that means that over the course of a 34-game season, a guy that is 6'10" averaged under 1 offensive rebound per game. What does that say to me? It says he mostly hangs out on the perimeter on offense, and really, even though, listen, you don't want to limit a guy that's 6'10", you don't want to pull him close to the basket if that's not where he's best utilized. but you do hope that he'd spend a little bit more time in the paint and getting easy baskets, not just settling for threes. My other concern about Jabari Smith, and this is something where, again, it goes into the fact that I've watched him, that I've covered him, that I've watched him for years in high school basketball. I think he's a really good player, but when you're talking about the number 1 overall pick in the draft, you got to nitpick a little bit, and my nitpick is this. He is a great shooter at 6'10". He is not a great creator at 6'10". If you watched Auburn, he was great in catch-and-shoot scenarios. He was great in scenarios where a play was run for him. But if you just gave him the ball at the top of the key and said, hey, go be Kevin Durant, go get yourself a bucket, that is not something that he's capable of doing right now. Now, be clear, he's 19 years old. To be clear, he's one of the youngest players in the draft. And to be clear, that can develop. But I think we all get enamored by 6'10", 43% three-point shooter. But right now, that three-point percentage is based solely on catch and shoot and the ability of others to set him up. When did Auburn start struggling? When their guards tried to do too much, when their guards stopped creating for Jabari Smith, and when Jabari Smith was left to create on his own late in the year, that was when they struggled. So this is all a long-winded way of me saying I do like Jabari Smith. I get why he is probably the leader in the clubhouse to go number 1 overall. But I think when you have that number 1 overall pick, you're really hoping for a pretty darn sure thing. Again, we can criticize the career trajectories of Anthony Davis, of Kyrie Irving, but those guys are future Hall of Famers. Ben Simmons, a multiple-time All-Star. Zion Williamson, 27 points per game and an All-Star in the 1 year where he was healthy. I don't know if we ever get there with Jabari Smith. Maybe we do. But could I also just see the scenario where he is a really skilled 6'9", 6'10", maybe like a guy like Rudy Gay that I actually went to school with at UConn back in the day? I could, and obviously that's not what you want from the number 1 overall pick.